Hello everyone, welcome back to IKEA Reviews. For today's video, it's going to be the August tier ranking as we see on the screen here, so let's get into it. So I was able to figure out how to get the screen recording and all of that features sorted out. So for August's tier ranking, you'll be able to see the screen a lot better than July's one, so I apologize about the July one, but let's start ranking everything from August, from movies, shows and video games, see where they rank here. So essentially we'll start off with, for me, straight off the bat, we've got Better Call Saul. I did the review breaking down season 1 to season 6, and for me, I'm putting it as an A++. Like, this, for me, is hands down the best prequel I've probably seen, probably in the history of prequels. For this, I give it a 10 out of 10. Really good development, really good storyline, really good character plots and character arcs from season 1 to season 6. And because it's tied into like the Breaking Bad universe, the Breaking Bad plot lines, you start seeing more of like the impact from characters from Breaking Bad, like Mike, Saul, Hector. You see all of these like backstories and what becomes of them in Breaking Bad. You get to see all of that, and everything is just tied so nicely. So for me, with Better Call Saul, it's definitely as like the best show I've seen in the month of August. It's probably a show I highly recommend. Season 1 starts off a little bit slow, but then you get that build up. Everything just builds up, like the lawyer based stuff, because it's mostly a lawyer based show. The lawyer stuff from the early seasons really is gripping and great to watch compared to like what happens later on during season 3 to season 6. Everything that comes afterwards with the meth stuff, the drugs scenery, it's just great to watch. Amazing TV. This is something you have to watch. I highly recommend the Better Call Saul show. And then from there we go from the best show to probably the best movie of the year. Hands down, Top Gun Maverick. A triple plus. Like, these two are up there as my favorite show and favorite movie of 2022, bar none. Like, Top Gun Maverick, it does everything so good. It's like the original was an amazing movie, but then Top Gun Maverick surpasses the sequel. It's an amazing movie, great storytelling, great emotion, great gripping drama. It has everything. The fan service is done so well in this movie, and the interactions between Miles Teller's character and Tom Cruise's character was a great plot point throughout the movie. And then on top of that, the flying sequences, everything in the movie itself when it comes to the flying scenes is mesmerizing, and it's such a great movie to watch. This is a movie I definitely recommend too. This is a 10 out of 10 as well for me in terms of a movie. An amazing sequel, a sequel done right. So this is definitely up there as a great movie itself. Now for the next one on the list, you've got The Sandman. It's like a Netflix show, a DC graphic comic adaptation of it. So for The Sandman, I would put it up as, I'd put it as an A. It's not on par with like Better Call Saul, Top Gun, but this Netflix series, this adaptation, because before going into this, I knew nothing about The Sandman. I didn't read any of the graphic novels. I had no idea about the character, but the show itself, it was a really great show. The storyline and the character developments, the plot points that comes across throughout the series is really well done. As I mentioned in my review too, like the first couple of episodes were a little bit slow, very heavy in terms of like the build up. Like, not a lot happened, and it was just introducing characters and introducing like the plot. But then eventually you start getting more of like what's going on. You start getting more of what's happening throughout the show. You start getting to know the characters more, building that rapport with them. So for this show, like, it gets good throughout the series. It gets better and better throughout each episode. One of my favorite episodes is episode 5, when you have like Death being introduced, and like the Dream Master and Death having that interaction and their scenes together, and then the every 100 years meeting up with a certain like character from a pub. It was really great like storytelling. There are standalone episodes too, like a diner episode where it's just solely focused on characters in a diner. And then as the storyline progresses, you understand what's happening more, you understand like the consequences of certain things. The end of the show is really gripping. There is one particular speech that the Dream Master gives to like this convention people. Mind-blowing scene for me, and it was the impact it had and the consequence of like what they did afterwards. Amazing. And the only like little nitpick I have as well, other than like the first couple of episodes being slow, is like I wish there was more between like the villain and the Dream Master towards the end. But other than that, it's something that if you like Marvel, if you like DC, if you want like a little twist on it, on like those kind of like comic book adaptations, I think you'll genuinely enjoy the Sandman. It is one I would recommend. I would give this probably an 8.5 out of 10, just as like, as I mentioned, like a couple of episodes were a bit slow. I wish they did more with like the villain too, but overall, in the grand scheme of things, this is something I would definitely recommend there. For the next one too, this is like an old school retro type movie. This one's The Terminal. It's essentially basically about Tom Hanks' character. This is a Tom Hanks movie. He's basically coming into the US, coming to visit New York, but during his flight, his home country is in the Civil War. His country has basically been shut down, declared like everything's shut down basically. So his passport and his visa are completely invalid. He isn't allowed to go back to his country, nor is he allowed to like leave the airport to go to the US. So he's stuck in the airport for essentially 9 months, and this is based on a true story. And what I found amazing about this movie is Tom Hanks plays his character so well, so riveting. His interactions between like airport workers, characters, people in the airport itself, it really comes across genuine and really fun to watch. For me, I love this movie. Like I saw it during the pandemic. I watched it a couple more times. I enjoy this movie, and for me, I give this movie an 8, just for my personal preference, because it's one of my favorite Tom Hanks movies. What he does in the movie, because as I said, he has to live in the airport, so he has to find job, he has to find money, he has to find ways to survive. So what he has to do to survive in the airport was heartwarming, and like the thing that tops it for me and why I give it an A, it's the reason why he wants to visit New York. It's gut-wrenching and it's heartwarming, and it's a great ride that you go on throughout the whole movie itself. So this movie is a movie I definitely recommend if you haven't seen it, because it's a genuine heartwarming movie, a great movie to watch. The scenery itself as well, because as I mentioned in the review, it's not a real airport. They had to like build sets and everything like that. So the whole scenery in this movie is an amazing thing to look at. They make the airport look so real and so genuine. Every little detail that comes across in the movie, you have to give a shout out to everybody behind the scenes in this movie. And like I said, Tom Hanks, he made this movie so great. And for this, I'd give it like a 9 out of 10 for this movie. So next up on the list, we've got Bullet Train, a movie that just came out at the beginning of August here, starring Brad Pitt, Aaron Taylor-Johnson, Brian T. Henry. For me, I definitely enjoyed this movie. It's one of those wacky, crazy, like off the rail movie, and it definitely was off the rails in the third act. But overall, it was a fun experience for me. I enjoyed the movie. It was wacky. Some of the storyline, the plot was ridiculous, but it was fun for me. And so for me, I would put this movie as like I'd give it a B minus. I'd give it probably a 7.5 out of 10, just because the third act was just, like I said, it went really off the rails. It turned into like a ridiculous movie. So that is the reason why I'd give it like a lower score, why I give it like a B minus. But overall, in terms of the movie itself, it was fun, it was enjoyable, and I would watch this movie again. It is a good movie, like for me, as like a take all the seriousness out of it. It's a fun movie. And next up on the list, we've got the DC Super Pets. Now for me, for this movie, As I mentioned in my review, the trailer itself didn't get me hyped for it. I was kind of iffy about it a little bit, but then I went to go watch the movie. I went to go watch this movie and I was thoroughly surprised at how entertaining it was, how good it was. I'd give this movie a B+. It was enjoyable for me. The Rock and Kevin Hart together as a duo, hilarious as always. The plot line that goes throughout the movie and the backstories that you get from Crypto and Ace, like their backstories and like their storyline as well. It was fun to watch. It surprised me because of the humor that they had as well. Like the humor in the movie itself, especially with like Merton the Turtle, I found the funniest character of the whole movie. It was a fun movie to watch. It's something I would recommend, especially if you have kids too. I think the kids will also enjoy this movie. But with DC, their animated stuff is so good, and I was blown away by this, especially because the trailer itself didn't get me all that hyped, but watching the movie, it definitely impressed me there. And another one that impressed me too and surprised me too was Vengeance, starring BJ Novak. And for me, I give this movie an A. Like, it's basically about a writer who lives in New York who finds out that a girl he hooked up with has been murdered, and her family think he's a boyfriend, so they like invite him over, and he starts getting this idea of like having a podcast. So he like starts recording them, starts finding out about everything that happened there, them thinking he's a boyfriend, so like them getting close with him. So it comes across really genuine and really fun to watch, surprising me, because this movie, looking at the trailers and everything like that, you think it's like a good premise and interesting plot, but then once you actually watch the movie itself, what they use, like, because as I mentioned in the review, they use the state of Texas as a character and like all the interactions with that. They've got Ashton Kutcher in the movie, who I found was a genuinely great character in this movie, and I loved what he did throughout the movie itself. Everything was really nicely played out. The storyline and the plot was well developed, and it made for a fun movie because it plays on like real life situations when it comes to like human thinking and humans' reactions. So whatever happens at the end of the movie, you get what they did with the movie, you get what they were trying to say and trying to bring up. So for that, I found it really great and really entertaining. And for everything else throughout the movie itself, like the storyline and the character interactions between BJ Novak and the victim's family, was fun to watch, and it really did surprise me. I was not expecting this movie to be this good. So for me, it's an A, and I would give it an overall probably an 8.5 out of 10 in this category here. And now for the next up on the list is Paws of Fury. This is an easy F for me. Like, you go from like Vengeance being top tier to Paws of Fury. The storyline just was bland. The comedy was generic. I was honestly dozing off throughout the movie, but because when I saw the trailer, I thought this could be a good movie, it could be entertaining. I was curious about the movie, but then watching the movie itself, as I mentioned in the review, nothing just, I would say, went well in the movie. Like nothing gelled, or nothing like really like made you enjoy the movie or made you want to continue watching the movie. Everything just fell really flat. Like Samuel L. Jackson's character was funny at times, but then like some of the things that they would throw out there, like some of the comedy, some of the jokes, some of the one-liners, it all just felt completely flat, and it left me very disappointed, because I thought the movie could be good, but it left me very disappointed. I'd honestly give this maybe a 2 out of 10 at best. I think even if you go watch it with kids, even they will be disappointed with this movie itself. And next up on the list is one that I did a shorts about. It's the Netflix series Justice Served, which I feel like this show is going unnoticed and deserves more attention to it. It's an amazing show to watch. It's basically about a group of rebels crashing a courtroom, trying to bring justice to themselves, not relying on the justice system in terms of one man killing another man, and everything with the corruption in the country. The characters itself, the storyline, the way they play into like the nation and the population inside this country, it's an amazing show. It's something you shouldn't sleep on, because the characters that they have and what is being developed, you'll love every bit of it, which is what I did. So for me, I give this show an A+, a 9 out of 10 for me, because of everything that they did throughout the show, from the beginning of the episodes to the end of the episodes to the end of the series. Everything played out well. The main character, like the leader of the rebels, you see his backstory, you see the flashbacks and all of that kind of stuff, and they've made you invested in the character so well so that what they do at the end of the show, you are blown away by it. The writers did an incredible job with this show, and I really hope this show gets more notice and hope it gets a season 2, because it really is like a well-developed, amazing show to watch. And next up on the list, you've got The Grey Man. And this is a movie that I was honestly excited for. You've got Chris Evans, you've got Ryan Gosling in it, playing off each other. And for me, this movie, I enjoyed this movie. I'd give it a B+. It's probably an 8 out of 10 for me. There were some minor parts that I have like a nitpick about. Mentioned it in the review with the drone shots, the camera work. Some of it was just a little bit off for me. But overall, I loved this movie. I loved the back and forth between the two of them. Chris Evans as a villain I wanted more of it. Like, you go from Captain America to this, and he just plays that douchebag so well. And some of the action scenes across the whole movie, like there's one scene in like the town center, and then the chase scenes with the cars and everything, it was all really fun to watch, and it was really great cinematography basically throughout the movie. And everything from like the plot to the storyline to the characters to the ending of the movie gelled so well. It was a great project by the Russo brothers, who directed like Avengers Endgame, Avengers Infinity War. So I really liked what they did with this project, and I'm really happy with the outcome, and I'm hoping that there will be a sequel, because The Grey Man was such a great movie to watch, and it's something that you should watch. It is on Netflix. I would highly recommend. And for the next one, it's Sylvester Stallone's latest movie called The Samaritan. For me, basically it's about a movie with two superheroes, Samaritan and Nemesis, who had a battle many years ago, and everybody thought they were dead. And so we come to present day, where like this little kid is thinking that Samaritan's still alive, coming to find out and eventually figuring out that Sylvester Stallone is Samaritan. So as I mentioned in the review, it's basically building on like, it's a non-DC, non-Marvel, non-comic book related like movie. And like for me, I'd have to give this movie like a C, just because I enjoyed the premise of the movie. I enjoyed what it was bringing to the table basically, but I just felt like some of the storyline just dragged on a little bit. Not a lot happened, especially during the second act. A lot of it was just like storyline that didn't focus into like the main plot itself. And then when it comes towards the third act, the CGI, it was just like kind of off-putting for me. So then eventually everything in the movie just felt like it could have been more. Like the trailer looked very promising. I enjoy Sylvester Stallone, what he does with his movies, but for this one, I felt like it felt flat. It could have done so much more. It could have been so much better. The kid and Sylvester Stallone, and even like the villain itself, they were really good in the movie, but even they couldn't just bring it up. So for me, it's a C, and for me, I'd give it like maybe a 6.5 out of 10 for this particular movie. And then next up on the list, you've got Adam Sandler's latest movie, Hustle. Basically him being a basketball scout going around the world looking for like the next NBA superstar. And what I mentioned in my review with Adam Sandler is that some of his comedy movies are hit and miss, but when he does like more serious movies, they do come out really well. And so for Hustle, for me, I enjoyed the movie. Not one of those like typical movies that you would expect from Adam Sandler, but the storyline between him and the character that he finds, the basketball player Bo Cruz, I really enjoyed their interactions together. I enjoyed the ups and downs that the movie brought, and like how Adam Sandler was coaching this kid to become a future NBA Hall of Famer essentially, and what he has to go through, the trials, the tribulations, the tryouts, the practices. It all developed into a really great movie, and a movie that genuinely surprised me of how good it was. So for me, I'd give this movie probably like a B+, just because it was a really well-developed storyline and a really well-developed movie, and genuinely surprised me of how good it was. Not up there with like Vengeance or Justice Served or The Terminals, but it was definitely a good movie, a movie that I would highly recommend if you are a little bit weary about Adam Sandler, I think this movie will definitely change your opinion about him, because his serious movies are genuinely good. So for me, it's a B, and altogether I would say it's probably around a 7.5 out of 10. And then from Sylvester Stallone to Adam Sandler to now Jamie Foxx and his latest Netflix movie Day Shift, I'm really disappointed with this movie. It's basically about Jamie Foxx, who his wife or his ex-wife thinks he's a pool cleaner, where in actuality he's a vampire hunter, vampire killer. And in my review I discussed the vampire zombie genre type, and it's like sort of slowly dying, and I thought this movie would like sort of elevate that genre again, bring it back up, but it just didn't do that for me. The kills and the action were pretty good. The zombies and the movements and like how they killed them, what they did with the zombies was pretty fun to watch. But overall, when it comes to like the plot, the characters, the acting, very questionable and very like flat. So for me, I'd give this movie like a D. Just, it's not a movie I would recommend. I'd give this probably a 4.5 out of 5. Jamie Foxx carried this movie, and Dave Franco, who's also in this movie, his comedy was sort of hit and miss. He was great as like a duo with Jamie Foxx, but overall the movie itself just felt like it could have been so much more, and it could have, like I said, elevated the zombie vampire genre again. But just once again, this just felt flat, like another generic zombie movie that honestly you'd probably just skip. It's on Netflix, you could put it on in the background, but it's not something that I would say desperately to go out and stream. And for the next one, you've got Star Wars Rebel. I did like a breakdown of season 1 to season 4 each season, so go ahead, check out that video there. Now for me, the Star Wars movies and the Star Wars animated shows, some of them are hit and miss obviously, but with the Star Wars animated shows like the Clone Wars and the Rebels, they are an amazing animated show. They are amazing storyline and characters, and with Star Wars Rebels it's no exception. This to me is definitely like an A. Season 1, season 2, season 3 and season 4, the opening episodes and the finale of each season was gripping television. The tension, the drama and the storylines, some of the like standalone episodes and like the storylines that tied into everything in terms of the main plot was really great to see. The characters and the planets that they have and introduced in the show was an amazing aspect of the actual show itself. What they brought with Mandalorians, the Jedi temples, the Grand Inquisitors, Grand Admiral Thrawn, Darth Vader, everything was really done well. And similar with like Better Call Saul, like the first season is like a little slow because it introduces characters and introduces like the aspect of the show, but then it just slowly builds up and every season just gets better and better. And it's something that you shouldn't sleep on either. Like if you love the Clone Wars, you'll love the Rebels, and some of the characters from the Clone Wars are brought back into Rebels, and it just makes the show that much greater. So I love this show, and it's a show that I recommend. I'd definitely give this probably a 9 out of 10. It's definitely an A. If I were to pick between Better Call Saul and this one, I'd probably go for Better Call Saul. So that's why Better Call Saul is like the A triple plus, but Star Wars Rebels is definitely an A plus in my books. And then next up on the list is Keep Breathing. It's a Netflix series. There I did a short about this as well. It's basically about a young girl who's like at the airport. She's like a lawyer that needs to go on a flight, but her flight gets cancelled. So she basically hitches a ride with two guys who have their own plane, and then the plane just crashes into like a river, and she's stuck on a stranded like island basically by herself. And so what the storyline does and what the writers do is that they focus on her as like the main character, but the problem is that they focus so much on her flashbacks and her life before being on this island, rather than focus on her and her survival methods and what she does to like cope basically. So it just focuses so much on that, and the flashbacks, some of them like were great to see like how she became who she is, but then some of the other flashbacks were just so unnecessary flashbacks, and that because it focused so much on that and not on present day, it kind of took away from the show. So for me, This is like a D and probably like a 4 out of 10, because like it could have been so much more. The storyline could have been so well developed and really focused on like present day, what she's doing to survive, but because they wanted to focus so much on flashbacks, that you kind of like take away from the greatness of what could have been with this show. And it's a show that I honestly wouldn't recommend. It's probably a show that a lot of people have given a miss, and I don't blame them. So for me, it's a D, 4 out of 10, not something that I would recommend. And then the final movie on here is Prey, which is basically like a prequel to the Predator movie, the original Predator movie, basically focusing on a woman living in like with her tribe, where the Predator comes to like hunt people. And for me, I enjoyed this movie. It was a great movie, and it was a great adaptation to the Predator movie, because some of the later movies were very, very below par, I have to say, but this one really brought it back up there along with like the original Predator movie. So I loved what they did with this movie. They brought so many different unique aspects, because they don't have like pistols or guns or any of that kind of stuff. It's all based on like weapons that they have at their disposal, like an axe or arrows or like those kind of stuff. You get like a really nice you get a really nice twist to like what they do with the Predator versus like these people. And there's a lot of like issues with like the Predator taking on like a female, and I thought they addressed those issues very well. It's not just about her wanting to hunt the Predator or hunt animals, that kind of stuff, because people are telling her not to. They focus on that a little bit, but it's not heavy-handed on it. So I really enjoyed like what they did with it, and how eventually like she takes on the Predator, and like using her intelligence to take on the Predator was really nicely written. And as I mentioned in my review too, like some of the camera work with like the field, the fog, all of that kind of stuff really does elevate this movie. So for me, I probably have to give this movie like a B+, probably an 8 out of 10. There were a little bit of like issues with the pacing of the movie and wanting more scenes with like the Predator itself, but overall I have to give this movie a B. It was really well done, and I definitely enjoyed this movie. And if you have reservations, honestly, throw that out the window. Go watch this movie. It is a really good movie. You'll have a good time with it. And the last one on the list here, we've got the video game, the only one I did review in the month of August, which is Spider-Man Miles Morales on the PS5. And as I mentioned in the review too, like the storyline itself is shorter than the original Spider-Man in 2018, but doesn't take away from like the storyline actually being good. It is good, other than like a little bit of issues with like the villains, and like there's like a background villain, and like one of the main villains, like I felt like the storyline was slightly weaker. But overall, the storyline itself was pretty fun to play, and it was really nice. But what I love more about this movie though was like the scenery, basically taking place in Christmas time period. You've got like the snow, you've got like the Christmas lights, Christmas decorations, the swinging itself, as I mentioned in this review and in the Spider-Man review. The swinging is so fun to do, so fun to go around New York swinging. So I really enjoyed that about this movie. The visuals were so stunning to watch, and playing it on the PS5, it does elevate the game a little bit more for me. So for me, I have to give this game an A. It's definitely a great sequel to the original like Spider-Man game from 2018. It's something that if you have got the PS5, play it on the PS5. If not, then definitely play it. Play this first one and then play this one, because Insomniac are doing such a great job with these games, and you'll have such a great time with it. I cannot wait to see what they do with Spider-Man 2. So for me, Spider-Man Miles Morales is definitely one of those video games that you have to play. It's so enjoyable just for the swinging alone. So for me, it's probably a 9 out of 10 as well for this game. It's one I highly recommend too. But this is like the overall list, the overall tiers for the month of August. Like, let me know what you thought, where you would rank them, if you would rank them differently. Let me know down in the comment section below here. And if you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button, like button, hit that notification bell so that you don't miss out on any video. Now that I've managed to figure this out, we can do one for every single month. September's one will be coming at the end of the month, so keep an eye on that though. But thank you so much for watching though. Hope you enjoyed the video here. This is YK Reviews.